So I am the founder and executive director of Next Steps Liaison Project. And what we do is provide classes and ways to come together and connect with youth inside juvenile detention centers. And then we offer to extend that connection into post custody through a partnership with a probation department. And we try to be a bridge to resources on the outside. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we do, but we really see the hook of getting kids interested in connecting. The hook is really the classes and primarily the power source classes. We also run garden classes inside the Marin Juvenile Hall, and that is, an equally powerful hook. Um, but I'd say that part of that reason is because all of the concepts that are embedded in Power Source overlap and interplay with what we do in the garden. So we embed social emotional learning into the garden program. So, you know, I mean, I can't tell you how many times kids have just said, this is the only program that we really come to consistently, or this is the best I mean, I think that Power Source speaks to everybody because, one of the first things I say to kids is like, we're not bringing this emotional literacy because you all need to fix yourselves because you're in juvie and you need to get better. We bring this work because we don't know how you feel, but we know that you do feel because that's what makes you human. And so we all need emotional literacy. We all need to understand how the things that we feel and the stories we tell ourselves and our thought processes and how they impact our behavior, how they impact our choices, our decision making. So, I constantly share with the kids that like when I reteach something to you, I'm reteaching it to myself. When I'm teaching you, take a breath before you make a decision so that you can make a decision. I'm reteaching it to myself because I have to do that in my life too. There may be different consequences in my life when I need to take a breath, but it's the same process. It's the same concept. So this is something for everybody. Oh, why wouldn't they? I mean, first of all, adolescence is such a hard time, right? I mean, it can be such a hard time. We need so much mirroring back from adults, from peers, from coaches, from teachers. We need to have that constant dialogue, right? We need to be heard. We need to have adults brainstorm with us ideas, right? I mean, on the most basic level, even if we're not talking about kids who are really engaging in high risk behavior. But if they are, clearly they're asking for someone to engage, for someone to notice, for someone to hear and help them sort it out and sort it through. And also, so often when kids are making those bad choices and when it goes wrong and they disappoint their parent or they get locked up or whatever, they fall, they crash, right? And that's so painful. And so the idea of not offering this to kids seems like, why would you just not offer lunch at school? Like, why would you not offer something so basic to make it through, to navigate your life? And particularly kids who are acting out or engaging in high risk behavior often have, difficult lives at home, obviously, and there needs to be a container for that. And so the whole reason I started looking for this was when I first walked into the San Francisco Juvenile Hall, I could just feel all of this trauma, and one of my first thoughts was like, where is the container for this? And I know that some kids did have therapists that would come in or a caseworker and what have you, but there was no container. And I just thought, how is that even possible? I mean, these kids are sleeping in a cell at night, and it just seemed to be the antithesis of healing and getting to the root cause of why are you acting out? Why are you stealing? And there's so many layers to that. And very often it is survival driven. Really we need to look at why are some communities still so sorely underserved, so many people blocked and so many barriers for so many people. And then those people have children, and then there's survival driven behaviors. So I think kids need validation for that. And then so many times kids feel like they do want to change up their lives. And I think if we don't offer, I think the sooner that we can offer that container along with other resources, along with, as many resources as a school can pull out. And, every time I hear about a school that has this many police officers, I'm like, how many wellness centers do you have for the kids? Like, do you have at least one for every grade? If we have more containers for those, for all kids are trying to navigate, I think that's where prevention can really and truly happen. And, I work with kids in, they call it maximum security in San Francisco. It's basically the older kids. But in general, those kids have been coming in and out of there since they were 12. And so they've grown up in and out of that system. And I think once a kid gets to that point, their chances of getting out of that life is really, really, it's not in their favor. And I think if we can catch kids sooner and create containers and support systems and work with families, I think it's just all part of treating kids the way they deserve to be treated. And no kid is like, yeah, I want to be a criminal and get locked up by the time I'm 18. And if they do get to that point, which sometimes they do, that there's been a real failure in all of the adults and all the systems around them, if that's where they're at. And I know I've seen that happen, where you get to that point where, like, yeah, I'm gonna end up there. And so it's just, to me, it's just it's part of a multi-layered system where we start to provide for kids what they need, instead of ignore their needs and punish them, which is so obviously doesn't help.